For 20 years, Ithaca's throne sat empty. Since Odysseus left for Troy, a massive power vacuum defined the kingdom. Parasitic suitors occupied the palace, consuming the king's wealth, threatening his son Telemachus, and forcing Queen Penelope toward an unwanted marriage. Inside the Great Hall, these men have spent weeks mocking a recently arrived ragged beggar, completely unaware of who is actually standing among them. The beggar casts aside his rags and reveals himself as Odysseus. He holds a massive bow, fueled by 2 decades of stored-up rage. The wanderer has finally returned to his hall, and he has designed a high-stakes ambush to take it back. The violence begins without a word. Odysseus fires an arrow through the throat of Antinous, the cruelest of the suitors, before the man can even set down his wine cup. The hall descends into chaos. The suitors realize this isn't a threat, it is a death sentence. This tactical map shows the reality of their situation. Every sword and spear was removed from the hall by Telemachus earlier that day, leaving the suitors completely defenseless. They try to bargain, offering to pay back 10 times what they stole if Odysseus will spare their lives. Cold and steady, Odysseus ignores the offer. A decade of war and a decade of loss have left him with no interest in negotiations. Alongside Telemachus and 2 loyal herdsmen, he begins a systematic assault, cutting down the men as they scramble for exits that have been barred shut. Every shot is purposeful, designed to remove the men who spent years disrespecting his household and threatening his family. During the heaviest fighting, Athena appears in the hall, disguised as an old friend named Mentor, to guide the king's hand. Under her protection, the spears thrown by the suitors consistently miss their mark, while Odysseus hits every target with precision. When the fighting finally stops, every suitor in the hall is dead. Odysseus immediately settles the internal accounts of the palace, punishing the servants who betrayed him and rewarding the few who stayed loyal. He orders the hall to be scrubbed and purified with fire and sulfur, physically removing the scent of the suitors and the blood of the battle from the stone. By cleansing the space, Odysseus effectively erases the history of the last 20 years from his home. While the hall is being cleared, the nurse Eurycleia tells Penelope that her husband has returned. But after 20 years, Penelope refuses to celebrate. She has survived 2 decades of false rumors and men trying to trick her. For her, skepticism is a tool for survival. She enters the hall and sees a man weathered by war and time. He looks like Odysseus, but he is enough of a stranger that she cannot trust her own eyes. Penelope watches him closely. She casually tells a servant to move their marriage bed out of the master bedroom so the stranger can sleep in the hallway. Odysseus reacts to this with immediate anger. He explains that the bed cannot be moved because he carved the bedpost directly from a living olive tree, still rooted in the ground. This was a secret shared by the 2 of them alone, a detail 20 years of distance could not erase. Odysseus had used his bow to reclaim his hall, but this single shared memory finally brought him back into his wife's life. Penelope's defenses finally fall away. She rushes forward to embrace the man she hasn't seen since the start of the Trojan War. That night, they sit together and account for the 2 decades they lost, his struggle against monsters and gods, and her clever resistance against the men in the hall. The next morning, Odysseus travels to the countryside to find his elderly father, Laertes, and restore the final piece of his broken family. Athena intervenes one last time, halting the cycle of violence with the suitors' families and mandating a permanent peace for the kingdom. After surviving gods, monsters, and a decade of war, the king of Ithaca has earned a quiet room and a peaceful home.